George Zimmerman
killed Trayvon Martin.
The death of a black man, George Floyd, in police custody.
An unarmed African-American teenager was shot and killed by police in the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson, Missouri.
Nah, this ain't freedom. In the United States of America, black men are more likely to be killed by police than any other group, even if they don't have a gun themselves.
Fatal police shooting of an unarmed black man.
With the murder of an unarmed black man.
The unarmed black behavioral therapist shot by police
after he held his hands in the air, lying on the ground.
Even though black people are only 13% of the United States population, 22% of people killed by the police every year are black. And as sad as that is, that's only one of the many ways black people are targeted in this country. A lot of privileged people try to act like racism doesn't exist. It must be nice to live in a world where you never have had to experience the negative impact of racism, and therefore you believe it doesn't exist. The real truth is that racism never died. It was simply disguised and renamed American culture.
My fellow Americans, our movement is far from over.
If you want to understand how racism operates in America, the first thing you need to understand is the concept of poverty.
Anyone who moves through a major ghetto of our country will see the housing conditions. People don't have to be reminded that they are forced to live in slums in many instances, and they're often rat-infested, vermin-filled slums. And it isn't too hard to see the exploitation that the Negro confronts in the ghetto, where he is forced to pay more for less.
Slavery was abolished in the United States in 1865, but that doesn't mean black people were actually free. Because once slavery ended, all the black people that had previously been held against their will and forced to work without getting paid and without the possibility of getting any education were sent into a system that was intentionally designed to keep them poor and away from white people. Even though it was illegal for racist white people to continue owning slaves, they still found a way to keep black people in captivity, aka a predetermined set of boundaries that they could not escape no matter how hard they tried. To anyone that says black people should have just started working, buying houses, and buying land and property, please tell me how they were supposed to do that when all the property and land in the country that would have been available to buy had already been bought up by a bunch of racist white people that would rather die before they sell a house to a nigga in their neighborhood. Who exactly were black people supposed to buy property from? Not to mention, black people weren't able to get any good jobs anyway. Ain't much done changed, huh? Black people had a very hard time getting the funding they needed to buy houses, which meant they were forced to rent property instead, so they would have to continuously spend their money to live, but never be able to make any of it back. And when black people were finally allowed to buy homes, they were only able to buy cheap houses in poor neighborhoods that depreciate in value instead of being able to buy houses that appreciate in value like the houses white people were able to buy. Which means black people did not have an opportunity to build wealth through real estate. So all this time while white people were able to build wealth, have money for retirement, and at least have a house to leave to their kids, black people were stuck in the cycle of trying to find a way to scrape up just enough money to pay bills, eat, and die, all while having less money. And if you think everything I just said was just a thing of the past and that racism doesn't exist anymore, you might be one of the most delusional people on the planet, because the system we live in today is the same system that was in place back then. It's just been dressed up a little different.
In fact, our fight has only just begun.
Fast forward to 2025 and black people are still disadvantaged when it comes to building wealth. According to CNBC, right now in 2025, black people make 82 cents for every $1 a white person makes. And let's not forget the fact that in the vast majority of companies, the higher you go up the org chart, the less black people you see. So if black people have lower paying jobs and they make less money than white people in those same jobs, it would make a lot of sense that black people are not able to afford houses in the same neighborhoods white people are able to buy houses in. If you think that's not by design, I got a unicorn I can sell you, because everything I just explained is just the beginning. This whole situation gets way, way worse. The United States educational system was intentionally set up so that black people would have access to lower quality education. The United States government set up the education system so that the majority of funding a school gets is determined by how much property people pay in that school's area. And what determines how much property taxes you pay? The value of your house. Long story short, these evil ass, racist ass folks done said, let's put these niggas over here in the cheap houses, and then let's make it so that the quality of education they can get is based on the value of those cheap houses. How weak does your soul have to be to do something like that? To make this whole situation worse, let's not forget that the government determines which zip codes are included in which school districts. All they do is pull out a map and draw boxes around certain areas to determine who gets to go to what schools. The government intentionally made black school districts and poor black areas bigger, and they made white school districts and white neighborhoods smaller. This means the people in black school districts and black neighborhoods have less money to spend and more people to spend it on. White schools have thousands more dollars to spend per student. If you think this is just a coincidence or somehow it's all magically happening because black people are the inferior race, you need to slap yourself. The United States government intentionally made sure black people would make less money than white people on average, so that black people would have to live in lower value homes away from white people, so that black schools would get less funding, so that black people would get less quality education, so that black kids will grow up and get lower paying jobs than white people, so that black people would never end up living in the same neighborhoods as white people. And if you try to point out the small percentage of black people that do end up getting a better education or better opportunities than everybody else, slap yourself again, because some black people will be more successful than others the same way some white people will be less successful than others. But when you have multiple centuries of one race living in poverty significantly more than everybody else, the only reason you can think that was not by design is that you was privileged enough to never have to live in those conditions and experience for yourself how hard it is to get out of it. And even though the United States has created laws claiming to promote equal opportunities, those laws are simply not enforced. There is no punishment for people and companies that violate these laws, because the people in power positions violate the laws too. Those laws are only a decoy so that when black people complain about not getting equal opportunities, all you racist ass folks can point at the laws and pretend that those laws actually do what they claim they are designed to do. It's too easy for people to simply act like they are oblivious to any wrongdoing on their part and continue to keep the racial wealth gap alive and well, and continue to make sure black people remain in poverty and as far away from white people as possible. Now, please tell me, does that sound like freedom to you? And by the way, speaking of laws not being enforced, somehow, some way, the government found a way to enforce laws that hurt black people, even though they ignore laws that help us and overturn them as much as they can.
My administration has taken action to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense.
The war on drugs is a prime example. We all know that white people do crack and cocaine just as much as black people do. People love doing drugs and having fun, but it's only criminalized when black people do it. Please tell me how this makes sense. Crack and cocaine is damn near the same drug, but the government created worse penalties for getting caught with crack than they did for getting caught with cocaine. Now, why do you think that is? It's because crack is cheaper, and who is more likely to be using it if it's cheaper? Let me take a wild guess. Black people. So the government also conveniently decided that they would arrest people for getting caught with smaller amounts of crack and larger amounts of cocaine, and miraculously, black people somehow got way longer sentences for being caught with 100 times less the amount of the same drugs. Oh, and don't let me forget to mention that those same people ended up being discriminated against when they tried to apply for jobs and housing, simply because this stuff was on their record. Meanwhile, millions of white people that was out here doing the exact same things and sometimes even more, simply never got arrested for it, and therefore they never had to deal with the issues black people had to deal with for doing the exact same thing. Again, if you don't think that was designed specifically so they could get more opportunities to put black people in jail and stop them from being able to get housing and jobs so they can build wealth, listen, I got a magic pill I can sell you that will make you live forever.
We will make America.
Shut up. This ain't freedom.